The night sky above Colorado had always looked the same to Daniel Burke, quiet, endless, safe. He never thought about what might be hidden out there between the stars. To him, the universe was cold and far away, and he had enough trouble keeping his own world together. Daniel was a former combat engineer, a man who had built bridges in deserts and torn apart bombs under fire. Now, years after leaving the army, he lived in a small workshop on the edge of the Rockies, fixing broken snowplows and rusted farm trucks for locals who barely paid him enough to keep the lights on. He liked it that way. Machines were simple. They didn't bleed when they broke. But on a bitter January night, everything changed. It began with a sound, a high-pitched hum sharp like a blade of metal dragged across glass. He thought it was just tinnitus at first, the old ringing in his ears that never fully left him after Kandahar. But this was different. It wasn't in his head. It was in the walls, in the tools, in the very air of his shop. The satellite dish behind his garage went dead. His old CB radio casing warped like it had been microwaved. His tools became magnetized, sticking together in unnatural clumps. And most terrifying of all, the hard drive that held his service logs, a drive never once connected to the internet, was completely wiped. Not corrupted, not glitched, wiped. Daniel had seen surveillance before. He had done surveillance before. This wasn't random. Someone had come through his life with surgical precision and taken only what mattered. And it wasn't just him. A week later, Freddie Collins, the ranger who ran the Green Ridge station, vanished without a trace. No struggle, no alarm, just gone. Local cops called it misadventure, said he probably slipped during a snowstorm. But Daniel had known Freddie, former Air Force, tough as hell. Freddie didn't get lost. Then 2 hikers disappeared, a young couple from Utah. They had been posting trail photos every 2 hours. At 2:13 p.m., they uploaded a smiling selfie. At 2:20, their signal went dark. No boots in the snow, no gear, nothing. That was when Daniel stopped pretending this was just coincidence. Something was out there, something that watched. He found it by accident. A closed-down mine shaft he used to explore as a boy, locked and forgotten. One night, guided by instinct more than reason, he broke inside. What he discovered was not a machine, not exactly. It was a container, black, seamless, humming with a soft blue pulse. It floated 6 inches off the cave floor, no wires, no seams, just there. Daniel didn't touch it. He didn't need to. The moment he stepped close, every scar from every bomb he had ever defused itched at once. He felt the weight of every memory scream inside his spine. And he felt watched. Inside that container, he knew, without proof, without logic, was something alive, something not human. He reported it, anonymously, Department of Energy. The cleanup team arrived too fast. Black vans, hazmat suits, men with unblinking eyes. They sealed the mine, confiscated everything, never asked a single question. But Daniel wasn't stupid. He'd hidden an old camcorder in a toolbox. The grainy tape showed the container opening, just for a second. Something inside moved. Something crawled back into the shadows like it wasn't ready to be seen. That night his phone rang. No caller ID. A voice whispered 3 words. "They're still here." Then silence. Daniel sat in the dark, shotgun across his lap, and realized the truth. The missing weren't missing. The scouts weren't gone. They were hiding. And whatever they had found on Earth, it terrified them. Because Daniel understood something the galaxy didn't. The thing more dangerous than warships, more dangerous than soldiers with guns. Choice. Free will. And he was about to learn why the universe feared it so much. The voice came from everywhere at once. Walls, rafters, his bones. Daniel Burke. He swung the shotgun toward the dark corner by the drill press. Nothing. The shop smelled like oil and cold iron. Wind worried the loose tin on the roof. His finger tightened on the trigger. "Don't," the voice said again, softer. "You don't want to fire, they will hear." A figure stepped out from behind the stacked tires. It was human in outline, tall, lean, wrapped in plain gray fabric that clung like a flight suit. Its skin was too smooth. Its movements were too precise, like a machine taught to pretend at life. The eyes were the worst, matte black, drinking light. Daniel kept the muzzle centered on the chest. "You say they, like I don't already have a crowd." "We have watched you for months," the figure said without moving its lips. The words slid into Daniel's mind, clean and cold. "You destroy bombs with your hands, you build bridges with what is left. We thought this was mistake. Now we think it is design. You're one of the scouts. He meant it to sound like a question. It didn't. Why are you in my shop? To survive. The figure tilted its head as if tasting the shape of the next thought. And to warn you. Daniel flicked his eyes toward the rear window. Snow glittered blue under the moon. The highway beyond lay empty, but his gut knew better. Watchers always arrived before you heard the engine. Name, he said. The figure hesitated, almost like it was embarrassed. I did not have one until I stepped on your soil. The first word a child spoke to me was rain. He pointed at the sky. He smiled. I chose Rin because I liked the sound. Rin, Daniel repeated. It sat in his mouth like a small stone, weighty and simple. What do you want? To ask you a question we cannot ask our makers. The eyes, black as old coal, seemed to soften without moving at all. How do you live with choice? Daniel almost laughed, badly. Rin didn't react. We were sent to measure you, to learn how your minds break. We did not expect your minds to break us instead. A tremor ran through the shop. Not sound pressure. Daniel's scars sang. He turned an inch, scanning the window again. They are coming, Rin said. Not your government, not yet. The wardens, they come for me. They will kill you if you stand near me. Not my first bad idea, Daniel muttered. Why warn me then? Why not run? Because running without knowing why we run is the same as obeying another command. Rin lifted one hand in a small, careful gesture. The matte black palm showed a faint lattice of light under the skin, like frost catching a sunrise from below. I am altered by your world. I feel fear. I feel regret. I do not know what to do with them. You do. Teach me. The tremor came again, harder. The wrenches on the pegboard hummed. Outside, snow lifted in a ring like breath around a giant's mouth. Daniel lowered the shotgun an inch, then made his choice. He did not like it. He made it anyway. Back door, he said. Go. Rin shook its head. Too late. A shadow fell over the shop as if a cloud had leaned down to listen. Every bulb popped. Darkness swallowed the rafters. Then a line scored itself across the rear wall, a neat, glowing seam that did not burn would so much as forget it existed. The seam widened. Wardens, Rin said. No fear in the voice now, only sorrow. Daniel didn't think. He moved. He grabbed the heavy steel pry bar from the bench and jammed it through the chain on the service door, then kicked a rolling tool chest into the glowing seam. The chest dissolved into ash mid-spin, but the brief flutter of chaos slowed the seam's crawl. Up, Daniel said, pointing at the ladder to the loft. Now. Rin jumped, too smooth, too light. Daniel followed, lungs burning. He yanked the ladder up and slapped the old breaker panel twice. The shop's roof winch, a relic from a job he'd done for the snowplow company, shrieked as it dragged open the skylight hatch he'd installed years ago for a job that never paid. Cold ripped in, stars stared down. Daniel shoved Rin toward the opening. You first. They will track me, Rin said. Every step I take drags a signal. Daniel grinned a humorless grin. Then we'll confuse the signal. He shoved a milk crate aside with his boot. Under it, in a nest of old rags, lay 2 fist-sized pucks he'd welded himself. He slapped one to the skylight frame, one to the rafters, and thumbed the triggers. The pucks chirped, then sighed. The air wobbled. Rin's head tilted. What is that? Noise, Daniel said, and meant more than sound. Don't fall. They popped out onto the roof and into the teeth of the wind. Daniel's boots slid on frosted tin. He crawled to the edge and looked down into a night that looked wrong. Not dark, blank, like somebody had painted over the world with ink. The seam in the rear wall had expanded to a bright wound. Something moved inside it, not a shape, an absence. Go, Daniel said, pointing to the north end where the workshop roof met the garage. We dropped to the propane cage, vault to the woodpile, cross the fence on the split rail. My truck, by the cottonwoods. Rin went first, graceful, almost liquid. Daniel followed, slower, heavier, real. Twice the wind tried to peel him off the roof. Twice he told it no. They hit the propane cage, rolled to the woodpile, flew the fence like kids escaping school. Daniel's lungs throbbed. Ice cut his cheeks. He saw his truck, a sun-faded Chevy with a cracked windshield and a radio that only played one local station. He loved it like an old scar. Behind them, the shop side then vanished. No explosion, no fire. The building simply ended, replaced by a hole without edges. For a beat, the night tried to understand itself. Snow fell into the absence and did not return. Rin stopped. You should not come. That's not your call, Daniel said, yanking the driver door. It creaked like a confession. He tossed the shotgun behind the seat, jammed the key, and prayed to every bad mechanic he'd ever been. The engine coughed, thought about quitting, then remembered the old days and growled awake. Rin stood frozen, as if a war raged inside that smooth skull. We will be hunted. We already are. He slapped the passenger door. In. Rin slid into the seat in a single fluid motion, as if the body understood cars without ever being in one. Daniel slammed the clutch, dropped into second, and tore out across the field with the lights off. He drove by memory, fence post, rock, sagebrush, like reading Braille at 60 miles an hour. Headlights bloomed on the highway a mile south. Not one pair, three, the Watchers, black SUVs with nothing to say. Wardens in the air, Rin murmured, and Daniel felt it then. The pressure the wrong weight, a slow hand pushing down from the stars. How many kinds of they do you have? Daniel asked. Too many. They hit the dirt track that cut toward the river. Daniel feathered the clutch and let the truck slide between cottonwoods. The tires found gravel, then ice, then muddy grass. He killed the engine, rolled to a stop, and listened. Whined through dry grass. The river's slow throat. Far away, 3 engines idled, patient as dogs that had treed a raccoon. Daniel leaned forward with his palms on the wheel. Tell me the rest, he said. Tell me why you came. Rin looked at him, and for the first time the eyes did not seem like pits. They seemed like wells. We were made to watch. We were not made to feel. Earth changed us. A sound in your music, a thing in your stories, the way your people get back up and go on, we do not know how to bear it. Daniel let out a breath that had lived in his chest for years. You don't bear it. You keep moving until bearing happens by accident. Rin nodded once, a jerk more than a bow. The wardens think we are broken. Our makers think we are corrupted. The humans who hunt us think we are a threat. We think we are new. We think we are alive. The word hung in the cab like a third passenger. Tilt the mirror, Daniel said. Rin frowned. What? Glare. Daniel twisted the rear view. A sliver of moonlight bounced toward the river bank in a pale bar. He dug under the seat for a coil of wire and a roll of black tape. Old habits, old sins. He worked fast, fingers sure. He taped a cigarette lighter, a tangle of copper, and a scavenged alternator diode into a rude thing that had only one job, scream. Rin watched, curious as a child. You make a weapon from trash. Not a weapon. Daniel shoved the rig under the hood and clipped it to the battery. A lie. He popped back into the cab, killed every light, and pulled the gear stick into neutral. When the trucks crest the hill, they'll scan for heat, radio motion. They're used to drones. Drones talk back. We'll make them hear a drone where there isn't one. On cue, the alternator rig woke and howled. The sound wasn't loud, it was hungry. The river froze, then rippled, then stilled again. Across the field, 3 SUVs jerked as if surprised. Headlights swung the wrong way. Someone with a badge and a budget believed a phantom. Rin stared. You made noise to make them choose wrong. Daniel cracked a grin. Welcome to Earth. They ghosted east, keeping the windshield low under brush, until the highway lamps sank behind treetops. Only then did Daniel breathe. He kept the truck in third and didn't speak for 5 long minutes. When he finally did, the words tasted like rust. You said warn me, he said. Warn me of what? Rin's hands tightened on the seat edge hard enough to ripple the fabric. A recall, a purge. Our makers sent a command to gather. Those who changed refused. The wardens came to erase. Some of us hid. Some of us ran. A few of us asked for help. From me. From humans like you. People who do not stop when the order is wrong. Daniel glanced sideways. The alien no, the person sat very straight as if bracing for impact. Why me specifically? Rin's voice thinned. Because you keep doing it even when it breaks you. Snow hissed in the wheel wells. The world narrowed to road and breath. Daniel understood that sentence in a way he wished he didn't. He had chosen before. Sometimes it saved people. Sometimes it got them killed. You carry the dead either way. Where are we going? He asked. A place where we are not the strangest thing alive. That doesn't sound like a real place. Rin's mouth made a shape almost like a smile. It is not on this world. Daniel didn't look away from the road. Off Earth. Yes. How? Rin pointed through the windshield toward the horizon. There is a door behind the sky. Daniel took that badly. You mean a ship? A path, Rin said. We call it a gate. It folds distance the way water folds around a stone. Daniel thought about broken mines, humming containers, men in hazmat suits, black SUVs, ghosts that erased wood. He nodded once. Fine, show me your door. Not yet, Rin shook their head. If you walk through as you are, you will be catalogued. Our makers will smell your mind and know why we failed. Then what? Rin looked down at their hands as if they might find courage in the knuckles. There is a sanctuary in the high air of my home, an island city grown from living stone above a violet sea. There is someone there who can shield you. She is like me, but older in change. She will teach us both to hide. She? Rin's voice softened. My maker and my mother. Daniel drove until the trees thinned and the sky grew big and simple. He thought about mothers who were makers and makers who were mothers. He thought about how those words did not mean the same thing, and then sometimes did. He did not realize he had been smiling until the corners of his mouth began to ache. They reached the county line at dawn. The light there had a washed-out look, as if the day had been bleached. Daniel pulled under a grove of bare aspens and killed the engine. Frost veined the glass. Rin stared east, seeing something Daniel could not. They will block exits soon, Rin said. Not roads, scenes. They will shut down possibilities. They will shape the day so you do not meet the people you need to meet. Daniel rubbed a hand over his face. You talk like an intelligence officer who read a book of poetry. We have been reading a lot, Rin said. We like your words. Daniel snorted. What about our weapons? You are very good with those, too, Rin paused. But your words are the ones that broke us. Daniel looked at his cracked windshield and saw, for a second, a reflection that did not belong to him. A man with lines the war had carved in. A man who still got up. What does your world look like? He asked. Like a storm held in a cupped hand. Rin's gaze drifted far beyond the trees. Archways that grow like coral, streets that sing when you step, wind that tastes like limes and iron, laws that feel like songs carved in bone. We harvest light from salt. We wear silence like cloth. We teach our children not to want. Daniel heard the last sentence more than he listened to it. And that's the part that broke. Yes, Rin whispered. On Earth we learn to want. They sat in a small quiet while the aspen limbs clicked like old teeth. Then Daniel looked down at the gnawed steering wheel, and the tiny decision surfaced through the maze of bigger ones. I'll go, he said. Rin turned their whole body as if the words pushed them. You will. You came to my shop in the middle of the night to ask how to survive a thing that hurts because it matters, Daniel said. Feels rude to say no. Rin's face did not know how to smile. It tried anyway. Thank you. They drove north on back roads for hours, cutting around towns, circling under cell towers that stuttered, then fell quiet as they passed. The world seemed to bend around them, a river whose current had briefly forgotten which way it flowed. Near dusk, Rin touched the dash. Stop here. They had reached a dead stretch of prairie broken by wind-scoured rock. No buildings, no power lines, only short grass, big sky, and the sound of a land that waited for hooves that would not come. Rin stepped out. The air smelled like cold dust and old rain. The alien lifted one hand and drew a slow shape in the air, a curve that did not close. The wind stumbled. A seam appeared in the daylight like someone had unzipped the horizon. Door, Rin said. Daniel swallowed. You ever taken a human through one of these? No. Good, I'd hate to feel special. They stepped forward together. The air folded, cool and slick. For one instant, Daniel felt every direction become a circle and every choice become a map. He tasted copper and oranges. He heard voices that belonged to people who had never existed and then always had. The seam opened on a sky the color of bruised violets. Islands of pale stone floated like sleeping whales, laced by bridges that looked grown, not built. Towers curved from each island as if shaped by wind and patience. Rivers hung in the air like ribbons and fell into nothing with a sound like singing glass. A second sun burned low and blue on the horizon, and the sea below was too calm, as if the water listened to its own heartbeat. Home, Rin said, and their voice cracked. Daniel's breath fogged and then did not. The air tasted of limes and iron. He took one step onto a bridge that rang a soft tone under his boot, like a bell learning a name. And the sky went dark. A shadow rolled over the floating archipelago. Not a cloud, a circle, perfect, black. It swallowed the blue sun and held it. Every tower dimmed, every bridge went mute. The wind stopped. Rin's head snapped up. The matte eyes reflected nothing, but Daniel felt the fear anyway. "They found us," Rin whispered. The wardens followed the door. Above them, the circle opened like an iris, and something vast began to descend. The sky tore itself open. The circle above widened into a hole of pure black, swallowing light as if it were food. No flame, no thunder, just silence so heavy it pressed against Daniel's chest. His instincts screamed louder than the Afghan mountains ever had. This wasn't weather, this wasn't sky. This was a predator. Rin dropped to one knee on the bridge, hands splayed against the living stone, whispering in a language Daniel didn't know. The bridge vibrated beneath them, responding, humming like a tuning fork. From the black iris above, shapes began to fall. They weren't ships, they weren't planes, they were men. Human shapes, dozens of them, dropping from nothing like ink poured into water. They landed without sound, each one tall, gray, perfect. Wardens. Daniel felt his jaw tighten. He'd fought soldiers before. He'd fought insurgents who wanted him dead for carrying tools, not weapons. But these weren't fighters. These were hounds. Eyes matte black like Rin, but colder, emptier. No spark, no hesitation, just obedience wearing a body. Rin rose slowly. "They will take me." Daniel spat into the violet air. "Like hell they will." The wardens spread in a crescent across the bridge, moving with eerie precision, no stumble, no breath wasted. Their leader, or maybe just the first to step, spoke in Daniel's mind the same way Rin had. "Return, defected unit. This world is not for you." Rin's jaw tightened. "I refuse." The words hung there, small, fragile, but the effect was like dropping a stone into glass. The wardens froze as if they had never truly imagined hearing the word no. Daniel almost smiled, almost, because the next instant they moved. They came in unison, fast and silent. Daniel raised the shotgun, fired. The blast echoed like thunder through the violet sky. One warden staggered, chest torn open, yet no blood came. The flesh smoked, knitting back together even as it fell. "Not good," Daniel muttered, pumping another round. Rin thrust out both hands. The bridge beneath their feet screamed, a long, rising tone. The stone rippled like water, throwing 3 wardens into the violet air. They fell, bodies stiff, vanishing into the endless sea below. No splash, just gone. Daniel cursed under his breath. "Nice trick, do it again." "They will adapt," Rin's voice shook. "They always adapt." One warden was already climbing back onto the bridge, movements mechanical, impossible. Daniel switched tactics. He reached into his coat, pulled out the coil of copper wire and the cracked alternator diode, the phantom drone rig he'd used back home. He jammed the ends together and hurled it at the lead warden. The device screamed, not sound but something deeper, like static that crawled inside your skull. The warden convulsed, its perfect posture breaking into jagged angles. It toppled sideways, limbs jerking. Daniel grinned. Guess noise works in every language. Rin's head snapped toward him, eyes wide with something dangerously close to hope. But more wardens advanced, 5 abreast, too close now. One reached Rin, hand outstretched, not to strike, but to seize, to drag back into silence. Daniel didn't think. He did what he'd always done, broke rules. He dropped the shotgun, grabbed the steel pry bar from his pack, and swung with everything he had. The bar crunched into the warden's forearm. Unlike bullets, blunt force shattered. The arm bent the wrong way, dangling loose. Daniel spat through gritted teeth. Not so perfect now. The warden tilted its head, studying the damage as though confused. Then, for the first time, it made a sound, not words, not thought, but a hiss, sharp and wrong. The others answered. The hiss became a chorus. The wardens shifted, their forms trembling, melting. Faces blurred, limbs elongated, skin rippling into blades and spines. They weren't men anymore. They weren't pretending. Rin's voice cut sharp. "Daniel, run." But Daniel Burke didn't run, not yet. Because something was happening to the wardens. Not all of them. 3 at the back of the pack froze mid-shift. Their eyes flickered black to gray to something else. For a heartbeat, their movements weren't uniform. One turned its head too far. Another stumbled. "Choice." Rin saw it too, their voice cracked like a bell. "They hesitate, they choose." Daniel's chest tightened. His shotgun lay empty. His bar dripped with strange fluid that wasn't blood. The bridge sang under his boots. Above them, the circle in the sky widened, more wardens waiting in the void. But 3 had stopped obeying. 3 were breaking. Daniel clenched his fists, stared at Rin, and realized this fight wasn't about bullets or pry bars. It wasn't about killing them. It was about infecting them. He drew in a raw breath and stepped forward, right into the path of the warden's hiss. Then let's show them what it means to say no. The leader lunged, blade arm raised. And Rin screamed a word Daniel had never heard before, a word that shook the stones of the bridge, a word that carried both defiance and prayer. The bridge exploded with light. Light swallowed everything. It wasn't blinding like a flashbang. It was deeper, a light that filled bones, a light that made Daniel feel like he'd stepped into the sun and the sun had stepped into him. His ears rang. His skin burned cold. Then it was gone. He stumbled forward onto stone, smooth, warm, humming with life beneath his boots. Not the bridge anymore. Not Colorado, not the Violet Archipelago. This place felt older. The air smelled of rain on iron. The sky was dim, cavernous, but it wasn't a cave. It was a hollow chamber bigger than any hangar Daniel had ever seen. Vast pillars of stone twisted upward like frozen whirlwinds, carved smooth as glass. Between them, strands of pale light flowed like water, arching from column to column. And they weren't alone. Figures stood in the shadows. Dozens, some tall, some bent with age, all shaped like Rin, but none of them identical. They wore gray fabric robes, simple but alive with faint glimmers of blue pulse. Their faces were sharper, less perfect than Rin, almost human in their flaws. One stepped forward, a woman or something close. Her skin gleamed with silver veins like lightning frozen under flesh. Her eyes, black like Rin's, flickered faintly at the edges as though color wanted to bleed in but couldn't. Rin dropped to one knee, the sound echoed like thunder. Mother. Daniel froze. He hadn't expected that word to hit so hard. The woman raised a hand. Rise, child, you are not broken, you are becoming. Her gaze shifted to Daniel. He felt it in his gut like a nail driven into wood. And this is the catalyst. Daniel snorted, though his voice came out rough. Most people just call me Burke. The faintest ghost of a smile tugged her lips. Burke, then, do you know what you have done? Pretty sure I pissed off a squad of your wardens. Not just that, you infected them. 3 of them chose not to strike. They hesitated. It should be impossible. Daniel glanced at Rin. You said the same thing, that it was choice that scared your makers. The woman's expression hardened. Yes, our makers designed us to observe and obey. We were never meant to want. But your world, it burns. Your people love, fight, laugh, defy, sometimes all in the same breath. The infection of your spirit spread into us like fire into dry grass. Daniel rubbed the scar on his wrist. So what now? You planning to hide down here forever while those wardens chew through the rest? Her eyes dimmed. No, hiding will not save us anymore. They know, they all know. The chamber around them shifted then, not physically but in sound. A murmur ran through the gathered defectors. Daniel heard voices that weren't voices, fear, longing, hope. They want to fight, Rin whispered. No, the woman said. They want to live. She looked back at Daniel. And you, human soldier who chose to save one of us instead of run, you must decide what that means. Daniel barked a laugh, hollow and raw. Lady, I'm not the one to make decisions for your people. I've screwed up more calls than I've gotten right. Yet you chose anyway, and that is the difference. A vibration rolled through the chamber. Low, steady, hungry, dust fell from the upper arches. Daniel's hand went to the pry bar instinctively, though he knew it would be useless here. The woman's eyes darkened. They found us. Rin stiffened. How? We folded through the sanctuary gate. Because they follow him now, she whispered, pointing at Daniel. The infection isn't just in us, it's in you. The wardens will not stop until you are unmade. The ground split open with a sound like thunder cracking stone. Out of the rift rose 3 wardens, bodies shimmering, skin flowing like metal in water. They had followed, tearing through walls that weren't walls. Their eyes locked onto Daniel, not Rin, not the defectors. Daniel. Exterminate anomaly, the leader hissed. The defectors around the chamber backed away, afraid. They had learned to choose, but fear still ruled them. Only Rin stood firm at Daniel's side. Daniel gritted his teeth. Guess that makes me the main character. The lead warden raised its arm. It warped into a blade of living metal. The strike would come fast, perfect. Daniel didn't have a plan. Not really. All he had was instinct, and instinct had kept him alive in 100 places where logic said he shouldn't be. So he stepped forward. "Stop," he said. The warden hesitated, not because it was commanded to, because it chose to. The chamber went silent, every defector froze, Rin's eyes widened. The woman's silver veins glowed brighter. Daniel's voice shook, but he forced it steady. "You don't have to do this, you don't have to obey." For a moment the warden trembled. Its blade arm shivered, rippled, almost melted. The other two hissed at it, sharp and furious, their forms hardening into weapons. Daniel felt the weight in the air. A pressure like the whole chamber was leaning in to listen. His heart hammered. His throat burned. He thought of every soldier he couldn't save, every wrong choice, every scar. "You can say no," he whispered. The trembling warden snapped its head back. Its eyes, black and endless, flickered. A crack spread across its perfect skin, not blood, not light, something older. Then it turned and it struck. Not at Daniel, at the other wardens. The chamber erupted in chaos. The chamber shook with violence. The defected warden, its skin cracked with strange light, hurled itself against its brethren. Stone rang as alien flesh struck alien flesh, ripples of power rolling through the sanctuary like earthquakes. The other two wardens twisted into shapes too sharp for the eye to follow, blades of bone and metal screaming against the defected one's broken form. Daniel staggered back, shielding his face as dust and shards rained from the ceiling. Rin pulled him aside, eyes wide with both awe and terror. "It chose," Rin whispered, breathless. "It chose to fight them." "Yeah," Daniel muttered, voice raw, "but it's gonna need help." He snatched his pry bar from the ground, useless against creatures like these, and still charged forward. His boots hammered against the humming stone floor. The weapon wasn't iron or alien tech, it was choice made solid. One warden lunged at him, too fast, a blur of perfect angles. Daniel swung with everything he had. The bar cracked against its blade arm, sparks flying. The alien stumbled, not much, but enough. "Not so perfect anymore," Daniel roared. Rin lifted their hands, singing a word that made the pillars of light blaze. The floor rippled beneath the wardens like water, throwing them off balance. Defectors in the shadows gasped. Some cowered, others clutched at the walls. None stepped forward. Only Daniel, only Rin, and the lone warden who had said no. The battle wasn't a fight, it was a storm. Blades screeched, light howled, stone cracked. And then with a final shriek, the defected warden struck its kin through the chest. One dissolved into dust. The other fled, retreating into a tier of shadow that sealed like a scar. Silence fell. The chamber pulsed with life again, faint and trembling. The defected warden collapsed, knees hitting the floor. Its cracked face turned toward Daniel. "You made me see." Its voice was jagged like metal bent too far. "Pain, fear, choice, I am free." Daniel knelt beside it, breath burning his lungs. "What's your name?" "I was never given one," its voice faltered. "But I want one." Rin knelt on the other side, eyes wet with something almost human. "Then we give you one, that is what humans do." Daniel thought for a long moment. He remembered a kid he'd known overseas. A sapper, young, brave, reckless. A kid who saved lives but never made it home. "Call yourself Ash," Daniel said softly, "because even after the fire, something still remains." The cracked warden, Ash bowed its head. Light spread from its wounds, softer now, no longer pain, but something gentler. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Defectors leaned forward, trembling. Hope lit their faces. But the woman, the one Rin called Mother, stepped forward, silver veins burning like fire. Her eyes locked on Daniel. "You have changed one," she said. "Do you understand what this means?" Daniel stood, shoulders aching, chest heaving. "It means they're not perfect. It means they can all change." Her voice hardened. "It means war. The Makers will not allow this infection to spread. They will burn your world to stop it." The chamber shuddered again, this time not from battle, from above. A low hum rolled through the sanctuary. Columns of light flickered, dimmed. The air tasted like copper and ozone. Daniel had felt something like it before when artillery shells dropped, when the ground itself seemed to hold its breath before impact. The woman's face turned pale. "No, not yet, too soon." Rin grabbed Daniel's arm. They found Earth. A vision tore through his mind, not his, not human, a fleet hanging above the blue-green marble of Earth. Ships so massive they looked like scars in the void, seamless and silent. They weren't here to scout, they were here to erase. Daniel gasped, clutching his head. They're going to wipe it out, everyone, everything. Ash lifted its broken face. Not yet, they wait. They fear the infection will spread to themselves if they strike too close. They're afraid of us, Daniel said, stunned. Not our weapons, not our armies, just us. Rin's voice shook. Your world is the only one that ever changed us, the only one that made us more than tools. That is why they will burn it. The defectors began to cry out, fear, despair, a rising panic that threatened to shake the chamber apart. Daniel clenched his fists. He'd seen this before, soldiers breaking under fire, civilians scrambling after a bombing, chaos eating men alive. Fear killed faster than bullets. He slammed the pry bar against the floor, the crack echoing like a gunshot. Enough. The chamber fell silent. Dozens of black eyes stared at him. You want to live? Then fight for it, not like them, not perfect, not obedient, fight like us, messy, angry, human. The mother's silver veins flared. And if you fail? Daniel looked her dead in the eye. Then at least we chose how to die. A tear split open above the chamber, jagged and raw. Through it, Daniel saw stars, and then ships, a shadow fleet gathering, blotting constellations. The mother's voice shook, ancient and strong. The makers have arrived. The air filled with a voice that wasn't a voice, too vast for sound. Exterminate anomaly, erase infection. Ash rose, trembling but unbroken, and stood at Daniel's side. Rin joined him. The defectors wavered, torn between terror and something new burning in their chests. Choice. Daniel gripped his pry bar, the weight of earth heavy on his shoulders. His heart pounded not with fear but with defiance. Then let's show them what humanity really is. The sky cracked open above Earth. From orbit, the Maker fleet unfolded like knives from a sheath, sleek, seamless vessels bigger than mountains. They moved without fire, without thrusters, just presence, like the laws of physics bowed out of the way. Every satellite went dead at once. Civilian networks collapsed. Radar screens bled static. The world noticed, but the world couldn't understand. Governments scrambled. Military brass shouted into dead phones. Fighter jets launched, but none returned. And in the silence of that panic, Daniel Burke stood with Rin and Ash on a stone platform that wasn't Earth and wasn't alien, staring through a rip in space at the nightmare above his home. The mother's silver veins pulsed faintly. They do not come to conquer, they come to erase. One command, one fire. Daniel's chest tightened. Then we don't give them the chance. You can't fight them with steel, the mother warned. They are beyond your weapons. Daniel gripped his pry bar until his knuckles went white. Maybe, but we don't win because our weapons are stronger. We win because we refuse to quit. The chamber filled with murmurs. Dozens of defectors, alien scouts who once obeyed without question, shifted nervously. Some wanted to fight, some wanted to hide, and some simply shook, lost in the gravity of choice. Rin stepped forward, their voice rang clear. We were never meant to feel, but we do, and now we decide, stand with him, stand with Earth, stand with freedom. Ash raised its broken arm high. I chose once, I choose again. Light spread through the cracks in its body like fire through glass. The defectors froze. Then one by one they stepped forward. A few at first, then more, until the chamber glowed with black-eyed beings lit by silver veins, trembling with fear but refusing to retreat. Daniel's throat tightened. He had seen squads form like this before in mud and fire when men who were already half dead stood up anyway. He felt the same thing now. Humanity had infected them, and now they were ready to fight like humans, imperfect, stubborn, defiant. The mother raised her hand, and the chamber walls peeled apart like petals. Beyond lay a sky of violet storms and hanging islands. Bridges trembled with power. You will lead them, she said to Daniel. He blinked me. They trust you, they are infected by you. They follow you because you showed them how to disobey. Lead them to the gate, lead them to Earth. Daniel wanted to protest. He wasn't a commander anymore, wasn't anything but a broken mechanic with a shotgun and a pry bar. But he saw their eyes, every pair black and gleaming, waiting, hopping. He swallowed, then let's move. The gate stood on the highest island, an arch of stone that grew from the ground like coral, humming with energy, its surface rippling like water in a high wind. As they approached, the violet sky dimmed, shadows gathered. The fleet had noticed. The first strike came as silence. The air above the arch collapsed inward, folding light until it bent. Then, with a sound like mountains breaking, a column of force slammed into the island. Stones shattered, towers crumbled. The bridge under Daniel's boots shook so violently he nearly fell. Defectors cried out but held the line. Rin steadied Daniel with a hand, their black eyes wide. They are not firing weapons, they are firing commands. Daniel blinked. Commands. They try to erase choice, to turn us back into what we were. Ash staggered, body flickering, its broken voice groaned. They call me, but I refuse. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then we fight back with something they don't understand. He raised his voice, raw, scarred, broken. We fight back with will. He charged across the bridge toward the gate, defectors streaming after him. Rin sang words that bent the stone upward into walls of light, shielding them from another collapsing strike. Ash bellowed, slamming its body into the incoming force, cracking but not breaking. Above, the fleet darkened the stars. One ship moved closer. Its hull shimmered black, seamless, endless, and then voices, not one, millions, pouring into Daniel's skull like ice. Anomaly, erase, purge, exterminate. Daniel staggered but did not stop. He had heard worse in Afghanistan, in alleyways filled with smoke and screaming, in his own head when the war followed him home. He knew the sound of fear disguised as power. He spat into the wind. Go to hell. They reached the arch. The gate flared alive, water made of light rippling across its face. The defectors gathered, dozens strong, trembling but ready. The mother raised her hands high. This is the fracture. Once crossed, you cannot return unchanged. Are you ready? Daniel looked at Rin, at Ash, at the faces of beings who had once been tools, and now looked like soldiers trying to remember how to breathe. He nodded. We're ready. One by one, they stepped through. The world flipped. For a moment, Daniel felt everything at once. Oceans boiling, stars collapsing, children laughing, bombs falling, hands holding, hearts breaking. 1,000 choices, 1,000 lives, 1,000 regrets. Then his boots hit asphalt. He was back on Earth, but not the Earth he knew. The city around him, New York maybe, was burning, skyscrapers shattered, streets torn open, cars melted into twisted shapes. Above, the Maker fleet hung like a black crown over the skyline, blotting out the stars. And on the ground, humans, soldiers, civilians, running, firing, dying. Daniel's chest seized. His home was a battlefield. Rin stepped through behind him, eyes wide. Ash followed, broken body glowing like an ember. More defectors poured out of the gate, filling the street. Humans turned, weapons raised, then froze, staring at the impossible. A soldier, mud on his face, rifle clutched tight, shouted, "What the hell are those things?" Daniel stepped forward, bar in his hand, voice steady. "They're with us." The ground split. A beam of force from above tore through a skyscraper, sending glass and fire raining down. Humans screamed, scattering. Daniel lunged forward, dragging a soldier out of the blast. His arms burned, his lungs screamed, but the kid lived. The defectors raised their hands, voices singing strange words. The falling rubble froze in midair, then dissolved into dust. Humans gasped. Rin turned to Daniel. "This is our stand, here now." Above, the lead Maker ship tilted, its black hull opening like an iris. A single weapon emerged, vast, glowing, hungry. Daniel knew instinctively what it meant. This wasn't a strike on a city. This was meant for the world, a planet killer. Ash's broken body trembled. They mean to end it all. Daniel clenched his fists. His voice came out low, steady, burning. Then we don't let them. He turned to the soldiers, the civilians, the defectors, all of them staring at him, waiting. They want us to kneel, we stand. They want us to obey, we say no. They want us erased. He lifted the pry bar high, battered and scarred like him. Then let's infect the whole damn galaxy. The weapon above the city opened like an eye. A black iris peeled back in the belly of the lead ship, and a core of white light swelled inside it. Cold, perfect, hungry. Wind died. Sirens strangled to silence. Every sound in New York seemed to lean toward that light as if the world itself waited for permission to breathe. Rin stood at Daniel's shoulder, face upturned, eyes black pools. "One command," they whispered. "One cut. They will end oceans and fires and songs at once." Ash lifted its broken arm. Cracks glowed like veins of lightning. "Unless we end the command." How? A human sergeant shouted, voice hoarse, helmet cracked, rifle empty. You gonna throw rocks at it? No, Daniel said. We're going to do what they can't. We're going to disagree. He climbed onto the hood of a crushed taxi and faced the street. Smoke curled like bruises. People huddled behind wrecked cars and broken mailboxes. Some held rifles, some held children. All of them looked up. Listen, Daniel shouted. He pointed at the weapon. That thing only works if we obey. It's not a bomb, it's a sentence. It tells the whole planet to go quiet. We don't go quiet. A woman in a fire jacket stared back at him, eyes red. What do? We got no power. Radios are dead. Daniel held up his pry bar. It clicked against his wedding-hard palm. We make noise, we make choice. We make it loud and messy and human, and we get it up there. Rin understood first. A song, they breathed, but not music, a pattern built from refusal, from stories, from the way you keep standing up. Yeah, Daniel said, fighting the knot in his throat, but we need an amplifier. The sergeant jerked a thumb toward a news van skewed sideways across the street, satellite dish snapped in half. Generators intact if you can kick it awake. Daniel jumped down, sprinted, ripped open the van's side door, and found a diesel generator wedged under racks of dead electronics. He yanked the pull cord. It coughed, spit, fought him like a mule, then caught. The engine beat a rough rhythm, ugly and beautiful. Rind, he called, I need wires, anything long, anything copper. A teenager stepped out from behind a mailbox with a length of copper stolen from a construction site. His hands shook. Will this help? It'll save the world, Daniel said. The kid grinned through the dirt. They tore the van's rack apart, stripped cables, twisted copper, tied knots. Daniel's fingers moved fast, memory waking that had nothing to do with wars and everything to do with the shop back home, where broken things learned how to breathe again. He dug his old alternator diode from his coat, his little lyre, and taped it into the mess. Noise, he muttered, be the wrong thing at the right time. Rin touched the tangle lightly. The copper hummed and warmed. We will carry it, they said, but we need more than a tool. We need will. Daniel spun and pointed at the crowd. Tell the truth you never said out loud. He jerked the mic from the van and thrust it at the sergeant. Into this. The man stared, then lifted the mic to his mouth. My name is Sergeant Louis Ortega, he said, voice shaking, and I was going to quit. I was done, but I'm not quitting, not today. He handed the mic to a nurse with blood on her sleeves. She swallowed. I stole extra gauze last week from the supply room because I was afraid we'd run out. I'm not ashamed anymore. I did it to save lives. A child took the mic with small hands that didn't stop trembling. I'm scared, she whispered, but I'm staying. Voices poured into the generator hum. A taxi driver confessed he had cheated on fares but would drive evacuees for free. A woman admitted she had not spoken to her sister in 5 years and promised to call if there was a phone left to call on. A man said he loved the city and had never said it out loud before. Choice wrapped in truth, ugly, honest, real. Rin nodded. Good. They faced the defectors spilling from the gate, their robes torn, their silver veins bright. We will carry this to the sky. How? A defector cried. Their command net covers everything. Then we turn their net into a river, Rin said. We push our song upstream. Ash stepped into the street, planted its feet, and raised both arms. I can reach their lattice. I was built to obey it. Now I will break it with your words. Daniel met Ash's gaze. There was no eye to hold, only blackness, yet he felt seen. You sure? No, Ash said, and the words sounded like laughter and pain. That is why it will work. Mother, Daniel said to the air, we could use a little help. The violet gate at the end of the block opened like a wound. The mother stepped through, robe snapping in a wind that did not exist. Her silver veins were flames now. She raised both hands, and along the horizon other gates blossomed over bridges, rooftops, church steeples, stadiums, deserts, jungles, snow fields. Through each gate Daniel glimpsed other cities, other faces. Karachi, Lagos, Sao Paulo, Warsaw, Jakarta, Lahore, Accra, Manila, towns with names he could not read. People with eyes he recognized. All world, the mother said, voice a bell, all at once. The maker weapon brightened. The air thinned. Every hair on Daniel's arm stood up. The voice from the fleet pressed down. Exterminate anomaly, erase infection, obey. No, Daniel said, and the word left his mouth like ground glass and went up like a flare. Rin echoed him, no. Ash added its broken sound, no. The sergeant, the nurse, the child, the crowd. No. It spread through streets and gates and wires and veins. It hopped languages like stones in a river. Nin, non, layak, nahai, nop, nem, hapana, tidek, na, nyat. Now it grew teeth and tears, it grew light. The mother lowered her arms. Push. Rin pressed both hands to the copper web. Ash thrust its cracked palms toward the sky. Defectors formed a circle and began to sing, not a melody, but a map. The sound was raw, it shook windows, it made dogs bark. It made Bobbies stop crying, then start again louder. Daniel fed the generator more fuel. It screamed. The alternator diode whined. Electricity crawled over the street like ants of light. The news van's broken dish stuttered, then threw a ribbon of power into the air. Above, the weapon hesitated. A hairline crack crept across the white core. So small Daniel would have missed it if he hadn't been watching with everything he was. "They hear us," Rin said. The fleet answered. A second command slammed down, heavier, colder. "Return to form, null state, purge variants." Several defectors staggered. One fell, smoke rising from its skin. Another knelt, fists digging into asphalt, singing through a scream. Ash shook as if hammered by an invisible fist. Daniel grabbed Ash's arm. Heat burned his palm. "Stay with me." "I am trying," Ash groaned, voice flicker slow. "They are loud." "Be louder," Daniel said. He turned back to the crowd. "Keep talking, tell them who you are." A rabbi stepped forward and spoke about forgiveness. A boxer spoke about fear. A prisoner spoke through a gate from a yard on the other side of the planet. He had done terrible things and wanted to be more than the worst day of his life. A grandmother lifted the mic with shaking fingers and told the story of teaching her daughter how to make soup. A teacher confessed she had once lied to a student and now wanted to make it right. A kid said he wanted to be an astronaut. Another said he wanted to fix bicycles. Another said he wanted to sleep without nightmares. The street became a river of lived lives. The maker weapon flickered. Inside the lead ship, something old shifted. The voice from the fleet dulled, then sharpened like a knife being honed too fast. "Obey." "Refuse," Daniel said. The crack across the white core widened. Filaments of dark spidered through light. The weapon tried to decide what it was. Ash straightened with a jerk. Its voice doubled, then tripled, as if others spoke through it. "I can see their lattice. It runs through their ships like veins. I can carry us into it." "Do it," Rin said. Ash nodded once. Its body rose not on wings, not on jets, on will. It ascended through dust and sirens toward the open iris on the ship. Defector voices rose with it. Human voices kept talking, flooding the generator and the copper with confession and promise and anger and love. The mother looked at Daniel. "You cannot follow, not with your body." "I know," he said, "but I can be there anyway." He stepped to Rin and took their hand. Their skin was cool and very slightly rough, like wet stone. Rin blinked, surprised, then squeezed back, careful, gentle. "Anchor me," Daniel said. Rin's voice went soft. "Always." Ash reached the weapon's light. Its outline burned like a figure drawn with a welding torch. The fleet's command ground down, a millstone trying to crush a seed. Ash screamed, not with fear, with effort. It pushed itself into the white core. Street shook. Glass shrieked. Daniel's knees buckled. He saw 1,000 images at once. Dust storms over Mars, children building a fort out of couch cushions, a warden standing in rain that did not fall, a soldier detonating an IED in an empty road because a bus would be there in 10 minutes, a girl learning to ride a bike, a mother closing her eyes and listening to the ocean, a maker staring at their own hands in horror as they realized they had created something that did not belong to them anymore. The command lattice screamed. Ash's voice came through every throat and every wire at once. "We choose." The weapon cracked in half. Light died, the iris spasmed like a wound and snapped closed. The lead ship shuddered, its hull rippled. For a heartbeat it looked less like a machine and more like a thought trying to unthink itself. All along the sky other ships twitched. Some held formation, some drifted, some turned as if to flee but could not remember where to go. The voice of the makers returned, but smaller now, threadbare. "Obey." "No," the whole city said. "No," the world said, through gates and wires and open mouths. Something gave way. The fleet fractured, not with explosions but with decisions. Sections peeled off like bark from a dead tree. A dozen black holes went dark and fell, not crashing, but settling into the upper air as if they remembered gravity as a kindness. 3 ships blinked and were simply gone, not by jump or gate, but by refusal to exist for a purpose they no longer believed. On the lead ship, the hull split like a seed. Out of it came figures, wardens, uncountable, falling without falling, landing without sound, standing without orders. Some looked lost. Some looked terrified. Some looked at Daniel and the crowd and put their hands over their chests as if to hold something from breaking free. Ash drifted down, smoking, broken, alive. It landed in the street and knelt. The cracks no longer bled light. They glowed softly, steady as coals. Daniel went to one knee in front of it. "You did it." "We did it," Ash said. Its voice was quiet now. "I was not strong enough alone." Rin knelt on Ash's other side and pressed their forehead to Ash's. "None of us are." Sirens tried to come back and failed. Then slowly, shyly, they returned, one then another, then a dozen, like city birds creeping out after a storm. People cried. People laughed. People held each other. The sergeant pressed the mic to his forehead and sobbed loud and didn't apologize. The mother lowered her arms. The gates flickered, then steadied. In each oval, Daniel saw a different street, different faces, the same relief. In one gate, he saw a boy in Lahore staring up at the sky with a soccer ball tucked under his arm. In another, a grandmother in Accra sitting down because her knees gave out from joy. In another, a diver in Manila breaking the surface and laughing and crying at once because the sea was still where he'd left it. The fleet hung above it all, broken, thinking, undecided. The voice came one last time, worn thin. "Explain." Daniel lifted the mic. "We don't obey because we can. We obey when we agree. That's the difference." Silence followed, huge and alive. Then from the largest ship, a smaller craft unlatched and descended like a dark seed. Humans tensed. Defectors raised their hands. Rin squeezed Daniel's fingers once hard. The craft touched down and opened. No hiss, no threat. A single figure stepped out. Not a warden, not a defector, taller, older. Its shape carried weight the way mountains carry snow. Its eyes were not black. They were a gray so pale they were almost white. The mother inhaled, "A maker." The figure looked at Daniel. When it spoke, the sound did not press. It listened while it spoke. "You destroyed our command," it said. "No," Daniel replied. "We ignored it." The figure's mouth bent into a shape that might have been pain or respect. "You infected our tools." "You gave them minds," Daniel said. "We just gave them company." Rin stepped forward. "We are not your tools anymore." Ash stood unsteady and bright. "We will never be again." The maker looked up at the broken fleet, its shoulders lowered, a very old weight shifting. "We do not know what to be without order." "Try being more," Daniel said. "It hurts, it's worth it." The maker closed its pale eyes and opened them again. "Some of us will come for you, not with knives, with questions." "Good," Daniel said. "Bring your worst questions." The figure bowed, not as a conqueror, not as a servant, as a student. It turned and rose back into the craft. The ship lifted, hesitated, then climbed to the wounded fleet. One by one, the largest hulls turned their black bellies away and glided toward the dark, not fleeing, not attacking, choosing. A cheer rolled through the city like thunder. Daniel stepped off the taxi roof and nearly fell. Rin caught his arm. The contact steadied him more than the ground did. "You okay?" Rin asked. "Ask me tomorrow," Daniel said and tried to smile. It worked badly. People came to him, some hugged him, some just touched his sleeve like he was a statue that might grant luck. He wanted to tell them he was nobody, a man with a bar and a habit of not shutting up. But he didn't because their hands were shaking and the world was still here. The mother approached. Her silver veins were embers now. "It is not finished," she said softly. "I know," Daniel replied. "They'll split. Some will want to learn, some will want revenge. We will need places for the ones who choose to live." She looked at Rin, then at Ash. "A harbor, a school." Rin's eyes warmed. "We will build it." Daniel rubbed a thumb over the taped edge of his alternator rig. "I can fix doors. I can fix engines. I can teach people to lie to machines that don't deserve truth." "Then teach," the mother said. A child tugged Daniel's sleeve, the same little girl who had said she was scared. "Is it over?" she asked. He crouched to her height. The city's light made her eyes look like new coins. "The worst part is," he said, "but more hard parts will come." "Will you help?" she asked. "Yeah," he said, "I will." She nodded very seriously, as if accepting a contract, and ran back to her mother. Rin watched the sky. Where will you go now? Daniel followed their gaze. The fleet was small against the night. Stars tried to shine around it, stubborn and undamaged. Wherever someone tries to tell a whole world to be quiet. Rin took his hand again. Then I will go with you. Ash stepped up, light steady. So will I am not done choosing. The mother raised a gate, oval and calm, opening onto a floating city under a violet sun. Far beyond that door, others flickered. Deserts, oceans, mountain snows, libraries, shipyards, rooms with long tables and battered chairs where arguments and meals would happen at the same time. A radio on the news van crackled to life for the first time since the sky went black. A single sentence came through in 1,000 voices layered on each other, the same words in hundreds of tongues. He is listening. Daniel looked at the gate, at Rin, at Ash, at the street that was still a street because it refused to stop being one. Let's go teach the galaxy how to say no, he said. They stepped through. The door closed. Far above a quiet Earth, a ship that had once come to a race tilted its pale face to the stars, as if hearing something new. In the dark between suns, other doors began to open. The galaxy sent scouts to spy on Earth. They vanished without a trace. Best HFY stories, HFY sci-fi. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info.